you're way more organized than I am.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, so what did we see? What did we do? I can't, this is this was a week ago. What do you expect?
Actually closing in on, yeah. Actually, we're closing in on 2 weeks.
I know. Oh, yeah. What? It's been a blur since I've been back. I've had to go to a graduation, a commissioning ceremony, which included lots of driving and just tons of stuff to catch up at the house with work, but also just at the house. Oh my gosh, just so many things.
Yeah, and I came home assuming that the lawn would have been attended to. It wasn't.
Why did I laugh?
Yeah.
Oh, it looks just like we left it, except worse. Yeah, that's...
Yeah. No, I mowed the grass the day before we hit the road.
Mm-hmm.
And assuming that, okay, it won't be too bad when it comes back. Well, it rained and, grew pretty quickly.
What's that?
You would think that as people would walk outside the house, they say, oh, wow, grass looks bad. Maybe we should do something.
It's like they get paid not to notice. It's what is it? What is it with the kids these days? I'm shaking my fist at the clouds right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plenty of them right now. It's pretty overcast.
It is here too. Yeah, we might get a little rain today and tomorrow. We'll see. That would be nice. It would be very nice. It's so dry. There was in the last couple of days a big fire erupted about 11 miles away. It's at 470 acres. It's 30% contained. So it's not like really big on West Coast standards yet, which is thousands of acres. That's a big fire.
It's big enough when it's only 10 miles away from you.
It is, and it's threatening for sure. It's just one. It's like, and it's what I would still call like early in the season for that kind of a thing. So a little scary.
What was interesting is while we were gone in Boston at the convention, there was the Canadian wildfires that were affecting the air quality here.
Right.
And so they said it was pretty hazy and looked, pretty rough. So we don't usually get affected by wildfires because there's nothing wild left other than the people here. But we do get a lot of haze and air quality issues. Yeah.
So what did we do a week and a half, 2 weeks ago?
We did a lot.
Yeah, we did a lot. Just judging by my camera roll, which is the new timeline, right? Like that's the timeline of events and receipts and capturing everything.
Well, most of the time, and so what I'm doing is I'll look, oh, I want to, look, I went here, and then I'm sitting there and I'll have to scroll and keep scrolling till I can find. I mean, it's just like, dang, I took a lot of pictures.
Yeah. And what's funny is we just don't clean up after ourselves in there, right?
No.
So you don't delete the bad stuff because it's they're free. I don't know maybe there are people out there who really meticulously kind of curate a photo library better than I do.
I should. Because, it's like, here's a picture of MIT chapel. And then here's one right next to it. Same one.
Slightly crooked.
Slightly crooked, not adjusted light-wise and things like that. And so I'm like, why do I still have that one in my camera roll? But then
here's a funny thing. Yesterday I went to a little car show that is an annual Datsun Roadster car show in Mount Shasta, California. And I took my oldest son who shoots film. He's got a medium format, dual lens reflex camera. It's really cool. Yashica. It's like a Japanese model. I think we probably talked about it a little bit, but he gets more conversations at car shows about his camera than he does about the cars, right? So because he's shooting film,
right,
and it's 12 shots per roll, and he got the rolled from last year when we went to the car show. We actually did 2 car shows and he got them both shot on film. One was the Studebaker show in South Dakota that we went to.
Nice.
And then one was the Datsun Roadster show. And he made this comment because he gets 12 shots, right? And he will sometimes he's really sparingly kind of going around looking for the angles. But yesterday it was different. He was just I'm going to get 12 shots in the next 5 minutes. And I thought that was interesting. And because the lighting was really good. It was like golden hour, and he was like, I got to take advantage of this quickly and shoot a whole roll here. But what he said was when he got the film back from the developer, he sends it down to LA to get it developed, and then it shows up in the mail. And he's like, every shot was a banger.
Nice.
And he likes that about shooting film because he uses his iPhone as a light meter, right? So that's his light meter.
Yeah.
And then he uses that because everything's manual on the Yashica camera. And so he sets it all up, takes his time to like frame the picture, and then snaps it off, and then finds other angles. And he's like, every one of them is good because he takes the time for setup. Whereas like with us looking through a phone or through our camera,
like, I can
like we take the picture, then we look at it, then we make an adjustment, and then we shoot 3 more, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or you take the shot that you think is pretty close to what you want, and then you've got the opportunity afterwards to do a little bit of post-production and fix it the way. I'm not saying
I get less and less.
Go ahead.
I do less and less post-production nowadays. I'm just like, here's the picture.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I do is because I personally like slightly more saturated photos that I can set when I'm taking the photograph. I can set the camera to that more vibrant is, I guess.
Like the mode. Yeah. Okay. So here's my pro tip, Cormac. You want my pro tip?
Ooh, please.
In the camera app. Okay. So I'm talking on iPhone. I don't know, whatever iOS this is, the latest-ish. There's a profile that you can set. It's an upper right corner button, and I have mine set to the amber profile.
Ooh, amber profile.
And I have my tone at -28, my color at 19, and my palette at 100. And I have it set up in the camera app where that
is your default.
That's my that gets applied to every photo by default. And obviously you can change it out of that later if you want to. But that is a slightly warmer, maybe slightly, I don't know, the saturation it's good. Like these are, you want me to say those numbers again?
You know what?
Did you catch it?
I'm just telling you right now. You're on film, you've been recorded. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I have been recorded. You can reverse. So look at here we are. Let's see if it can focus if I move my face out of the way. There we go. So nice. You can see that box at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
That's where the grid positioning is for those numbers, because you can't set those numbers manually, but you kind of have to use your big fat meat finger to get those numbers where you want them.
Let's see if it'll focus. B.
There you go.
Yeah. Now I do the same thing. I just haven't set.
You got to set it in the camera app, I think, to like go to that profile every time. That to me gets me without having to go in and do that editing process for the most of the time. That's a really good daylight setting for me. I probably wouldn't use it in every situation, but like I said, you only get to apply it yes or no, and then you can always remove it or change it later. There's your pro camera tip.
So everyone,
let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about those numbers.
Try those settings. See what you think about them.
Yeah, I think I started maybe with I like gold and amber. I like those two as kind of starting points, and then I tweak them to go from there for like normal, photography.
Yeah.
Anyway, so where did we go? What did we do? We're back to the. So this is my first East Coast trip to this location. So I went to New York, and then I've been to New York before, but then my first time to Boston, and it was. I think maybe this episode we just talk about kind of the general AIA conference, but I see us kind of having lots of episodes about the things that we actually got to experience that were not the AIA conference, but still like absolutely foundational to being an architect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The soul enriching things.
Yes, soul enriching. I felt that for sure. So yeah, my first trip to Boston, and so I went to the Arcol launch, which is a software company, and they're creating kind of early conceptual 3D modeling, and I don't know.
So
I don't have their elevator pitch like burned into my head.
You know what's funny about you going to that Arcole thing? Because you left this behind, but I still have it.
You've got the swag.
Well, the swag of the Arcole thing. So they're creating all of this, nice digital support stuff.
Right.
But giving away pencils.
Colored pencils. Yeah. Well, that was cool.
Pencils. Yeah. You're not getting it back. I have 2 boxes.
I know you're not sending it to me. It's okay.
No. I now have 2 boxes of it. But
yeah, so check out my LinkedIn feed if you want to kind of see what the Arcole event. There's many posts about it, not from me necessarily, but from others, and I've been reposting their stuff. But the successful launch, they actually went live. It's available for everyone to use. Arcole.io, ARCOL.io. And like I said, it's kind of early stage contextual modeling, programming, what I would call Jello Cube program modeling, stacking, adjacency stacking, but also tracking the numbers and giving you multi-user support. People can all get in there and work on the same project at the same time if you want to. And it does layout boards, and it's live. So what's cool is it's like a early phase 3D modeling study app feasibility, but it also does presentations, and it's all live links. So you don't have to like export PDFs to InDesign or to Illustrator and to do that whole rigmarole of back and forth and what's the latest version and all that stuff. It's all live. So it's and then you can just go into presentation mode, and it's all in the browser, all on the web. And so you don't have to install a piece of software to use it. And you get the updates as they roll out, which is really cool. But like I said, multiple people can work on the same project at the same time, leave comments, mark things up. So it's kind of collapsing a bunch of apps into one,
which is great
user interface. It's really cool. Yeah.
Because as we always keep talking about, one of the things that we're looking for is kind of like the ability to kind of consolidate all of these different workflows into something that's a lot more user friendly, right? And
user friendly, and it doesn't lose data. Like every time you export that stuff, you're always wondering, like I said, is this the latest version? Was this the latest floor plan? Is this the latest massing model? And when those views are live, it gives you that reassurance.
You mean the final
5B? No, really, this time. Final.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, seriously, this is the final.
Yeah, if you're not good with file naming, these are the apps for you.
Exactly. So you went from Portland to New York for
that
Arcole launch.
And I don't live in Portland, so we actually drove to Portland for the weekend before, flew out of Portland. My wife drove home alone. I went back to New York. So Portland's like a 6-hour drive.
How was the new airport, or the new terminal?
Beautiful. Yeah, that was ZGF. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, I've got a friend who is the PM on that.
That is a gorgeous, gorgeous terminal. Absolutely amazing. I would love to spend more time there, although I really don't care for airports that much. But that was like probably the number one airport experience that I've had.
Was it you that I was having this conversation with? Because I know I was having a conversation with someone, and about spending gobs of money and stuff on airport terminals and all of this other stuff. And
it wasn't me, but I think I overheard a little bit of like why do people spend so much money on airport terminals?
Basically,
it's like this transactional process, right?
But I mean, it's this. Yeah. This is the introduction to what most people who quite possibly have never traveled to, say, Portland or wherever. This is their first introduction to that place. And
it's the gateway to the city.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've been through multiple different airports throughout the world and was completely blown away by the airport in Doha, Dubai. These are some amazing spaces that, this is the first introduction to, let's just take the ZGF Portland one, because getting rave reviews, everybody loves it. You're having like all of these different, mass timber conferences that are featuring this. And it's putting Portland, not just on them. I mean, people know Portland for Pacific Northwest and, their connection to the environment and everything else. And this is just putting that face to putting the money where the mouth is, right?
I think it's a value statement for a city.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be.
I mean,
say
it
it
could
that
be
way.
because, I mean, let's be honest. There's a couple of airports that you fly into to the greater New York area that you're just like, "Oh, where am I?" Or,
Well, and
you know,
it's a
what?
tool
Yeah.
in that regard, right? It's
Yeah.
like a way to move people in and out and get them connected to other transit or whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
and so it does that, right? But yeah, it's so the theme of that Arcole event was called bringing the magic back to design. And this airport to me is an attempt at bringing the magic back to air travel because I think of it as a departure because for me, that's how I experienced it. I left Portland going through it. I didn't come into Portland that way. And so it wasn't really my introduction to Portland, and it hasn't been. Although I have flown into Portland, that my first time into Portland was a flight, but this wasn't the terminal that I went to when I landed, or maybe it was under construction because it was years and years ago. But the bringing the magic back, like air travel has lost a lot of magic, right? It is
absolutely.
It is the lowest common denominator of travel now. Like taking the train is a luxury compared to air travel, right? I mean, who does? I mean, maybe there's some like I've taken a few flights where it's like they actually treat you well, like Qantas flying to Australia was great, but most air travel is like it's just a function of getting you there without dying, right? It's like how just barely above that.
There's
And so I hope that some of the magic of this terminal starts to work its way back into the flight, right? It's just squeezing as many people into the flying can as possible.
The cattle carring it is,
it's brutal.
So if you think about it, when the kind of like height of air travel was, and you had like the TWA terminal, you had like in Dulles and all of these other ones that
people used to get dressed up to go for a flight, and there was like lounges on airplanes, and there was smoking, and
but I mean, there was
people hanging out in living rooms.
There was a leg
airplanes.
room. There wasn't like people like me who pay in that $15 extra to check in, to do my
15 is a deal.
To do my early bird check-in, so that I can get on my Southwest flight early enough so that I can...
You pick your seat.
Because I can get to the... Because I don't care, honestly.
You want an exit row?
I want an exit row because I want the leg room. And I do that every time. It's just like... And then I get like... Somebody like got in front of me. Dang you.
They've monetized legroom. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know right there. Yeah, so I just hope some of that magic of what they're doing in the architectural landscape makes its way back to the airplanes. I know that's a lot to ask, but that
highly
would
unlikely.
Be incredible. Yeah. So anyway, that was great. And then then a nonstop flight to JFK, and then a air train, and then the subway into the city, and then to the event. And it was like literally got to my room, put down my bags, walked to the event, and it had already started. So it was just like nonstop, and I didn't get to rest until maybe the next day on the train, when I got on a train out of Penn Station, and you were like, ew, Penn Station, ugh. But not that Penn Station. It was the better...
The newer side.
The newer Penn Station. And I did. I was thinking of Louis Kahn when I was there.
I mean, I jokingly, say every time I go through Penn Station, I kind of mutter under my breath, Louis, I get it. I understand why now.
Yeah. It took it all out of him, literally.
It was just like, although,
Oh, man.
And so,
Well, so what's the story of Louis Kahn, Cormac, just for those who don't know?
For those of you who don't know, Louis Kahn, on his last trip from India back to the States, he came back in through New York and was going to get the train from Penn Station to Pennsylvania to Philadelphia, and he died in a Penn Station bathroom.
In a bathroom stall.
Yeah.
What a way to go.
Yeah. And
jeez.
Seeing the unnecessary complexity of travel in and out of Penn Station, I kind of get it. Like,
I've always said I want a 3D model. Like they could do this with scanning nowadays. I want a 3D model of the New York Underground. Yeah. I think it would be incredible to see the complexity and, maybe the unnecessary complexity, as you call it, right? Or maybe it's the necessary complexity. I don't know.
Well,
but it would be absolutely incredible to see the Earth peel away and just have a model of all of that, what's going on underground. I think it would be
it would
super
be
cool.
It would be like, have you seen those sculptures? We have one in a building that I did down in Florida, where this professor who's studying ant biology and the communal aspect of ants, he did a sculpture where he took molten aluminum and poured it down into a carpenter ant, and so then
like a colony.
Then he dug it all away and saw all of the interconnectedness of the colony and everything else, and just like the intricate construction that they did and how much of it there was. I mean, it looks like if you were to kind of like hold like a jellyfish and see like all of the tentacles and everything else. It looked like that, and I can almost bet that probably if you like peeled away all of that stuff and just isolated the New York underground, that's probably what you would see.
I think most people think the experience of the New York subway system is like one level deep.
Oh yeah, no.
But you go into a station like Penn Station and you realize, wow, there's a lot. There are so many levels to this going on. It's like mining, but for normal pedestrians. It's really crazy.
So then you took a train, and
that's right. I took a train to New Haven, Connecticut.
And why did you do that?
I don't remember. No. It was like a 2.5 hour train ride.
But you
first time into Connecticut, so this was my first time out of New York City to an adjacent state up there, and I went where you and your lovely wife picked me up, and we went to see Hotel Marcel, where you got to stay. So tell us about the digs and hotel and what Hotel Marcel is.
So what Hotel Marcel is, and so why I selfishly asked Evan to take a train from New York instead of me picking him up, because
driving into New York would have sucked too. We would have. There was many logistical issues that we had to figure out on this trip, and this was just like the first one.
If you and I were still planning on trying to get to any events or anything like that in the evening of, what was it, Tuesday?
I don't know.
We would have never made it if I would have driven into the city regardless.
Right. True.
We would have probably spilled.
You would have had a 3 a.m.
Exactly. But when we left, so you went through your adventure of Portland to New York to all of the different mass transits and then out to New Haven, we drove for the purpose of not only driving to the conference, but also driving around, looking at architecture as much as we could that weren't going to be in downtown, where we could access it by either Uber or bus or walking or whatever.
Hold up do you have that page on your book?
Yes, my.
For those who are watching on YouTube, you can see Cormac's kind of itinerary of want to sees.
Yes.
On this page.
So I called it the Boston must sees if possible. And then I have on the other page, Yale must sees if possible. And so, we started at Yale, as you said. But so we drove through Canada, down through New York, and stayed at the Hotel Marcel. And for those of you who are not in the know of what Hotel Marcel is a repurposed adaptive reuse building that IKEA, of all people, bought and did some modifications so that they could fit their lovely surface parking into, their store.
What does that mean? What does modifications mean?
Yeah, they lopped half the building off so that they could, have a parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So what was left over was this, beautiful pedestal, the tower of what was formerly the Armstrong Rubber, then Pirelli Rubber, tire and rubber buildings. So it was an office building before. Beautiful modernist building. We'll have some photographs in the show notes and also link.
Really? You call it modernist? Is that what it is? I don't know.
Did I say modernist? I didn't mean modernist.
You did.
Oh,
real-time follow-up. Here you go. Here's
real-time follow-up.
Yourself.
The brutalist.
There you go.
Building. And it's incredibly amazing. The light and shadow play and everything else. And, we'll give some links to my Instagram page that, shows some of the photographs that I took. And probably if Evan took any photos and posted. If not, then, you'll just look at mine.
I didn't post anything at all yet, but I think your pictures were great, so I don't need to repost. It was the same angle that you shot.
Yeah, except for mine was better because,
You had better lighting that day. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And I can't help but think that lopping off that half of the single story pedestal is a bad idea from a compositional standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Man, it looks like it's top heavy, right? For sure.
Yeah.
And I don't think it probably used to feel like that because of the way
because
that it was proportioned.
So now it's like this, right? But it used to be like this.
Yeah, it used to. Yeah, in elevation, it used to be an L with the long leg on the ground.
Yes.
And so I'm speaking to the audio listeners right now for you, Mr. Sign Language on the screen.
Yeah, talking with my hands.
So there's this big, heavy, floating concrete cube on the short leg of the L, just floating in the air.
Yeah.
And because there's this whole, I hate even to say soft story, there's just a missing floor right in the building. It's so cool.
Yeah.
There's the two columns, which are like the vertical circulation on the ends of that, holding it up in the air. Talk about just like anti-gravity structural system.
Exactly.
It's so cool.
You look at the massing, the weight of this thing, and you just like, how?
Yeah. How? And so now the only pedestal that's left is directly under that floating cube. So it really feels kind of weird. I mean, I think it probably just made more sense from a reading architecture point of view for more uninformed people. Like, oh, okay, like that. It feels a little over. I don't know. Like it could just topple. Yeah, it's not going to, right? But
well, the interesting thing is that
heavy.
Compositionally, I encourage everybody to kind of take a look at the link to the photograph that I took. Compositionally, it looks, as you said, very heavy but it also looks like
as brutalist buildings do.
It looks so gravity defying that I think that's the thing that intrigued me the most about it. Is just like how,
yeah, how
and
it doesn't look like it should work. And I don't think you've mentioned the architect yet. Maybe you did, but I missed it. But
well, sort of a giveaway in the name for those of you who know Marcel.
For those who are on a first name basis,
with Marcel, your buddy Marcel, Marcel Breuer,
right?
Who, interestingly enough, we've talked about this on the show in the past, that I am unfamiliar with a lot of his work, but it's interesting to see that particular building in the building that's in my town that was designed by him. That is brick and glass, very modernist. So it's modernist Marcel versus brutal Marcel. Wait.
Versus.
Modernist Marcel or brutalist Breuer. There you go.
There you go.
Better.
There you go. Nice alliteration.
Exactly. Exactly. So, it's just this interesting to see the development from, and what's interesting is the building in my town is actually newer than that building. So it's almost like he returned to his kind of modernist roots when he did the Grosse Pointe Public Library.
Maybe Grosse Pointe was like, absolutely no brutalism here. Maybe they were just like, maybe they just said no.
You want to do a building? You're going to do it. You will do brick.
How many architects have ever gotten that kind of? Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time. No, it's got to look like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to work?
And then you have to figure out how to make it
work.
Do
you want this job? Well, guess what? Collegiate Gothic for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh.
So what was it like staying there?
I was impressed
as an adaptive reuse, right? I mean, like you said, this was an office building before.
I was very impressed at how very sensitive architecturally, interiors wise, they were to the existing building. From what I understand, they've got a bunch of plans up on the wall of what the building used to be. And so you look at it and you see that for the most part, they kept the rigor of the modules of offices and things like that. I also kind of think of is if those were the offices, or if roughly the layout of the offices as shown by the layout of the bedrooms for the hotel are, man, that's a very rigorous.
Luxuriously big?
No,
big?
No, they weren't big. They were, they were pretty much average size.
I would assume it would be super rigorous. Like, was Marcel a big I mean, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about Marcel and the free plan. Was he?
He was,
Or was he on the grid?
he was on the grid. He was both. He really was both. You know, it all just really depends. I mean, what was interesting about everything that I've been reading about the Bauhaus and he and Gropius specifically, they helped evolve the free plan as much as, you know, they were also guys to the grid. I mean, you think about even Mies, still on the grid, but still very much a free plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
You know, but
Cool.
I mean, nice, beautiful interiors, very respectful of the period, very respectful of like his style. I did not look up who did the renovations, but I do want to find out who was, and maybe on the next episode I can give them a little shout out because they did a fantastic job. Very, very sensitive to the style and the feel of it. It did not feel like it wasn't that building all the time. You know, so
Nice.
it was so well done. And so
Cool.
thank you to you for accommodating me and my wife staying there by you would have had to have taken an Uber from New York to Boston if you said no. But
I could have taken the train all the way to Boston.
you could have taken the train. But it was
No, this was a great place to stop. I didn't get to go inside, but
Yeah.
As soon as I got in the car with you guys, we went back to the hotel.
Yeah.
And you're like, you got to see it.
like,
So
yeah.
we did, and because it was right by the train station.
Exactly.
So that was very cool.
And then, of course, we started our journey to Boston, but it had to include a couple of stops.
So real quick before we go on, I think we're not gonna go in depth about the stuff the projects that we got to visit in this episode. I think that was probably the most in depth we'll get around Hotel Marcel for this episode because there's a lot of ground we need to cover.
Sure.
But then we'll come back and do that. But I just want to maybe take a little bit of a moment here to talk about this idea of, okay, so how many architects do you think who went to the AIA conference, the National AIA Conference on Architecture 2025 in Boston, just went to Boston and then just popped back out of Boston without doing all of this other stuff like we're talking about? So, and because the reason I bring this up is because it took a little extra effort. Yeah, Cormac's list right there is long of all the projects that we're the want to see, if possible. And we got to see quite a few of them, right? I don't know if you've checked kind of a percentage.
60%. We saw 60% of the list. And that's
Nice.
actually pretty impressive.
That's pretty good because they're not localized to the city.
They're
of
not just
Boston.
like clustered in one spot where we can go and walk around. It took effort to get there, to go there and to see them. You know, things like, you know, we drove out to like outskirts and things like that. So,
and you rented a car, right?
Yeah.
You drove with your wife from Detroit, not a short drive, to pull all this off, which gave us the ability to go out and do all this other stuff. Which okay, so now it's my turn to thank you for being like so amazing at figuring that out and doing it, and like that to me is what made the trip. It made the trip way more than the conference was doing all that other stuff. And so I bring it up because it's like it took extra effort. But man, was it worth it? Yeah. Like to do all of that stuff, especially for me who've never been to that side of that part of the country and get to experience those kinds of places that I'd only seen on literal slides in my architectural history class or on the internet since then, right? It's so never having had the opportunity to explore the places that we're talking about today. And so I guess so the older I get, the less tolerance I have to do this kind of logistical planning, right? Like I literally leave it to the last minute. You're like, what if you took a train to New Haven? And I'm like, I'll figure it out the day before, right? If I can. Yeah. And I just don't have the time or the patience to kind of, and this, I'm excited for AI agents, AI travel agents, especially like figure this crap out for me because I don't have the time or the patience to do it. We'll see how that works out. But it was so worth it. It was so worth doing that to make this trip what it ended up being. So anyway, I just wanted to take a minute to kind of talk about that because, it's way extra effort. I'll just say it. It's a way extra effort, but it's way extra payoff too.
Yeah. I mean, because you and I have talked about this on numerous occasions about the importance of travel and experiencing new places as part of the enrichment of our experience and our education and our ongoing education as architects so that we can understand What are other people doing out there? What
Or
have they done?
remember why we do what we do. Like,
Exactly.
why did we go into this? I think
Exactly.
it was equal parts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to also bring up here in this part, Cormac, the thing that I heard you start to say at this location that you never stopped saying after.
Okay. All right. What?
Cormac's famous 2 words on this trip. I was like, oh, I'm going to get this printed on a shirt for Cormac. Shadow play. Shadow play, shadow play, shadow play.
Thanks, man.
This is where the shadow play started. But it's true.
But-
like the facade of this building
Oh, my
is
Lord.
absolutely incredible because of the depth and the shadows that
And the
and
shadow
I bet
play.
like if you could just watch this building all day long and get like really cool views of it.
I could. I literally,
You definitely could.
I could sit there and set up a time lapse and go through a nice sunny day
by frame.
by
Cormac would
frame.
watch that.
Ooh, ah.
Did you see what just happened right there?
Look.
This is like, a documentary. It's just one camera angle. Maybe it's multiple camera angles, just switching back and forth, watching the shadows move across the building all day with just some cool soundtrack.
With my little floating head in there, just
Cormac's reaction video.
look
to
how
the documentary.
look how the door disappeared because of the shadows.
Right.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Yep. Yeah, I was paying attention.
But yes, you're right. It totally did not. And then, of course, some of the other buildings that we'll be talking about later is like the strength of those buildings. All right, so we got to Boston. So fast forward.
So then we drove to Boston. Yeah, we got some pizza on the way too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it like Boston pizza, but it was good pizza.
So we were outside of New Haven, so it wasn't quite New Haven. It was still tavern style, but it wasn't New Haven style pizza, which is, a little bit more crispier, brick oven, brick fired, and so unfortunately we didn't get that. Although people were trying to convince me to come out and once we got to Boston and come out and have some pizza. And I've never in my life heard Boston being famous for pizza at all. And so anybody listening that might be from Boston and think that I'm full of it, I'm more than happy to come back and have some pizza with you.
Change my mind.
But I kind of politely declined because I wasn't, well, one, we were at an event, but two, I wasn't quite convinced that pizza and Boston go well together.
Funny. Well,
I mean,
I heard good things about it too, but we didn't get to try it. Not that we just didn't.
I mean, you got New York style, New Haven, Detroit, Chicago, but Boston? I mean,
Question mark? Maybe.
Question mark.
I don't know. So from there, like you said, we got to Boston, and Boston is not what I thought. Like, okay, so there's, so I guess this is the next thing we talk about. There's like this idea that I had of what Boston looks like, which there are parts of Boston that look like that. And then there's like the part of Boston that just looks like
everywhere.
this new part. What do they call this? South Harbor, or what do they call it?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. I know.
You got to pull up the map.
Yeah, Harbor.
It was like it looked like
old
Seattle.
Old South Boston.
Yeah. So what did it look like to you? It looked like Seattle to me.
It looked, honestly, unfortunately, it looked like every other, large scale development area.
Developer-driven
It's very developer-driven architecture. Yeah. And the thing that somewhat disappointed me about that particular area, and we're talking about the area around the conference center that was old South Boston, and now that grid of old South Boston is somewhat scrubbed clean, and now it is very much kind of like these crystalline towers of glass and steel, and it doesn't, to me, it didn't speak like this was Boston. The beautiful
because we talked about genius loci in our last episode or 2 episodes ago, and that the spirit of the place, right?
Yes.
And so what you're saying is it didn't evoke the spirit of the place.
So the thing that I love about the East Coast and the East Coast cities is when you go from, say, DC to Baltimore to Philly to New York to Boston and all of the other ones in between and all the way up to Portland, Maine, they all have, there are characteristics that are strictly East Coast, but each one of them seem to have a very different, very unique, I'm only in Boston, I'm only in New York kind of feel. And if you were to pick somebody up and drop them just into that area around the conference center in Boston, they would never know that they were in Boston. It would actually be, you would feel like you were just in kind of like anywhere USA. Now, if you go into the old downtown or Back Bay or the North End and all of this other stuff, yes, you absolutely feel like you're in Boston. And, you know, thankfully having a car and being able to get out and get around, you could definitely feel that's Boston. And so I don't want to sound like I'm overly critical saying that, you know, Boston doesn't feel like Boston. So,
new parts of Boston don't feel like old parts of Boston.
Exactly. There is quite a disconnect in what you think of Boston, and when you're plopped into that particular location, you're not rewarded with an example of what Boston feels like.
So what if you could characterize what it feels like? Because you and your wife got to spend more time in like the Back Bay area than I did. Yeah. You got to go out on a field trip, go to a baseball game, do fun things, visit Trinity Church, right? So
hit a couple of Irish pubs, you know, things like that.
Okay, cool. So tell us what that feels like, so that for those of us who haven't gotten to experience that, kind of get.
So it feels like a city that's grown up and held on to its past. So you could see the evolution from pre-colonial America to the evolution of architectural styles and evolution where they still held on to small masonry buildings like, you know, the row home and things like that, to then, you know, evolving into brick masonry, you know, like block size buildings, to skyscrapers and high rises and stuff. But like the tapestry that you get when you have all of that together creates a completely different character. And you know this from, you know, being in New York City, that it still there are so many different architectural styles stitched together in New York City that it still feels like New York City. And
there isn't a spot in New York City where it's like they mowed it all down and started over.
Right.
And that's how this new area in Boston really feels like.
Exactly. And so the older part, you know, like you go across the bay into downtown Boston, it feels like Boston. It still keeps that character. It's like, oh, look, you know, there's where Paul Revere started his ride from and things like that. You know, you see the Old North Church and you see all of, you know, like you can understand like the breadth of the history that they maintained, and you see how it evolved and stitched together new styles with old styles and things like that, and things played off of each other pretty well. And that's what I think is interestingly successful about all of these old East Coast cities, that they held onto their tradition and explored it in different ways. Philly's a great example of that kind of a city. In the Boston that I got to see outside of the conference center still has that very much same feeling.
Because they haven't mowed it down.
Because they haven't mowed it down, and I don't think they have.
Is it safe to say that this new version, Boston, whatever, 2.0, was, by the new conference center, newish conference center, is in the last 10 years mostly been developed, would you say?
Yeah. Because honestly, I've actually been to South Boston when it was still South Boston, when people were like, oh, you don't want to go to South Boston. And it felt still gritty and still unsafe, or whatever you want to call it.
Unsafe.
And for some reason, this, it felt very sanitized.
And gentrified, right? Like so when I say it felt to me like Seattle, it's like the area around the Amazon headquarters in Seattle, where there's just all these towers that are filled with Amazon, and the bubbles that NBBJ did downtown, the Amazon conference rooms that are like these indoor greenhouse kind of things, and then because there's even a project like that there. It's not bubbles, but it was a really cool glass cube that had a bunch of plants inside of it. I mean, I think Rob Otani from Thornton Thomas said he told me that they worked on that project. So it was, and that did look like a cool project. But it's like, it just felt like that's why I say it didn't feel like Boston. It felt to me almost exactly like how I felt in Seattle. And I bet in Seattle it's kind of a similar story. It's like this super developer driven environment in
Right.
in this area of downtown, and it's like that probably doesn't feel like a port city of Seattle either, right? So
Right.
it's just this trend, right, where it's like this huge infusion of money and to create something new and the next version of a city. But it is cleaned up. It is safe. It is walkable. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of mixed programming going on. Like we saw like some fitness classes on the lawn. I bet that never happened in this area of Boston before, right? So just out in the open.
The only running that you did there was for your life.
Right. The Herzog and Dumiron building, I don't know the name of it, but that was really cool, right on the
ICA.
right on ICA.
Yeah.
So yeah, to walk under that cantilever, I mean, that's like a cantilever of all cantilevers.
The thing that, so I remember seeing that when, especially in like publications and stuff, when that was first.
When it opened, yeah.
And, it was a jewel by the water all on its own, right? None of this developer work had kind of engulfed that space. And the one thing that I did find a little disappointing about it now is that it's so dwarfed by all of the other buildings around it.
It's not a tall building. Yeah, it's not one of the giants.
Well, it now sort of feels, at one point in time, it was, this nice little jewel box sitting on the edge of the water in the same vein as, like, say, the Sydney Opera House. And so it had a lot of like power on its own. And now it's competing with so much noise around it that it's so, and then you first engage it now, like you were at an event where we were waiting for you to pick you up and you were right across the street from it. And so all we were doing is like staring at the back of it in the service entrances and things like that. And unfortunately, that's where now people who are going to be walking around there, that's how they engage that. And so it's gonna be a completely different experience. Now, granted, from across the way, and when you're looking at it obliquely from the side and stuff like that, it's still got that same power. It's still an amazing building, but now it just seems to be overwhelmed by its surroundings.
Yeah.
Which
so unlucky in their timing.
Kind of, yeah, exactly. But that was, I still dig that building. That cantilever.
So talk about Trinity Church. Talk about the baseball game. What you got to experience. I didn't get to go to those.
So we decided to, this was Wednesday, really, there wasn't a lot that had started yet. And there was, an AIA event at Fenway. But I did as very much I would normally do, is say, oh, AIA is charging $55, I think it was, something like that,
for a ticket.
For a ticket. I went to my apps that for cheap tickets and stuff, and basically found the same tickets in the same area, except for I was a lot closer to the field for $20 a pop. Actually, $17 a pop, to be quite honest with you.
Nice.
And so I was just like, yeah, I'll save the money. Like,
I'll definitely save the money. I don't need to sit with a bunch of other architects I don't know at a baseball game.
I mean, if I notice that they're an architect, I'll do some like weird little architect wave. You're like,
what's that?
I don't know what.
You're like the shadow play. Am I right?
Exactly. As a big fan of baseball, I've always wanted to go to Fenway because it's kind of a temple to the history of baseball. But man, is it a dog?
Really crammed in. Like, okay, so I had to drive your car to go pick you guys up.
Which, thank you again,
dude. Driving in Boston is horrendous.
Yeah.
Jeez,
all right. So
don't do it.
Let's talk about that for one real quick second. So, in Detroit, if say Surrey or Waze or whoever says that it's 2 miles away from you, it typically means between 2 and 4 minutes away from you. If, for instance, you're in Boston and it says that it's 2 miles away, it's 20 minutes to maybe an hour and 20 minutes away from you.
Yeah, I was going to say 40 minutes probably. Yeah.
And you're just like, and you question
Brutal.
You question your judgment, you question your life, you question all sorts of things in that time frame of like sitting there watching the frustration level of your drivers around you just build and build and build. And I understand why. We used to have this kind of like running joke, the closer you got to DC, the angrier and angrier you got because of just like the frustration of dealing with traffic and people and everything else and stuff. I get it in, seeing like Boston and not really knowing Boston driving at the time. I got a real quick education and so did you on how.
Be aggressive.
Be aggressive. Do not be apologetic. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to tell you that you're number one with a very distinct finger. It was something to behold. And so,
and if you miss a turn, good luck. Like,
oh my gosh.
Wow. Yeah.
Right, what
a mess. What a total mess. What a cluster.
It is. There's been on occasion where I say, the cluster bleep version of that statement, it's just like what's a good image that conjures up when you say, of a cluster. And driving, that fits there.
And the roads are really bad, but imagine if they took the time to close the roads and fix them, what would happen to that traffic?
Exactly.
So I understand why they're not addressing the roads.
But what's interesting though is that neither you and I really kind of like acknowledged the fact that like all of those tunnels that we were driving through, that was all part of the whole big dig. And when you're up on the surface and you're like actually traversing through the city and stuff, that whole effort of restitching downtown back together is so worth it. It is the experience from the pedestrian side of thing, and even from a car on the surface, is so worth the effort that they went through. Now, does it mean that it's stellar driving? No, not at all.
No, it's terrible. No. Absolutely terrible.
It was something special, man. And I've driven through so many different East Coasts, and you see the images of like, the bumper to bumper through like say Manhattan and things like that. And I've driven through Manhattan, and you sort of expect it, right? Mm-hmm. Boston is a whole special kind of traffic / aggression / anger / whatever other adjective that you want to throw on top of it.
And these zones are really separate from each other, so they are harder to get to. I don't know that there's a great public transportation system in Boston. I didn't get to experience it if there is, but like in New York, they've got this figured out.
Right.
Completely figured out with the subway or city bike or Uber or whatever you want to do, or walking, right? It's very walkable. This I didn't feel like fit any of those. Maybe city bike, but I wouldn't have felt safe at all with the kind of driving that was going on.
So the cool thing is that we took a bus from the convention center to kind of like the downtown hotels that the AIA had made like deals with. Right. So we took one of those shuttles, and then we basically walked from there. And, we got to, go to Boston Commons and walk around the botanical gardens and things like that for a little while. And then we just started our kind of like long walk, which was about 2 miles. But honestly, city walking 2 miles, that's not bad at all. But we started a 2-mile hike down to Wrigley. But in between, we got, we were walking.
You keep saying Wrigley.
Why do I keep saying Wrigley? Fenway.
No, you did it when we were there too.
I did too.
You're offending many sportsing people, I think.
Sorry, people of Boston. Wrigley's better than Fenway.
You just doubled down. I'm pretty sure you're not sorry.
I'm not sorry. Have you been to Fenway? Have you been to Wrigley?
No comparison.
And to be quite honest with you, if we're gonna start that whole thing, Camden Yards in Baltimore, so much better than both of them.
You heard it here.
It is the new temple of baseball that I think is so much better than practically every single baseball stadium out there. So, nah.
So talk about the church. What was that?
So, to talk about the shadow plate, So we went on our walk to Fenway. We stopped at Trinity Church. We also stopped at Boston Public Library. Trinity Church by H.H. Richardson, the top 10 of the most notable architecture in the United States. And I understand why. This is where a lot of the architects and architecture from early, let's just say the mid 1800s to the early 1900s, where all of those architects kind of evolved. And Trinity Church was an absolute gem that thankfully they have preserved and continue to preserve and provide tours. And it's so well worth it to go on these tours. It's still a very active church, still have a large congregation that, takes care of and are good stewards of this beautiful masterpiece of architecture. And you get wax poetic about, shadow play and the depth of everything and blah, 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 and all this other stuff. But to me, in our conversations that I always have about the kind of like lineage of architects, you have H.H. Richardson's who, had a draftsman who was, McKim, and then the McKim goes on to, McKim, Mead, and White. And then you have this whole evolution of H.H. Richardson trying to kind of establish this American language of architecture. But then, when he passed at relatively young age, I believe he was in his 40s when he passed, kind of took on the mantle as kind of like the next, big Boston architect, New York architect, wherever the hell they were. But
on the East Coast.
But then, he travels in, he takes sabbatical and travels through Europe, and then is influenced by the classical architecture there. And then when, they are hired to be part of the White City, the World's Clubbian Exposition, they bring back and kind of like set back, in a way, American architectural language. They set it behind, and then you have people like Louis Sullivan who comes out and is trying to rebel against all of that, and then you've got Frank Lloyd Wright that evolves from that, and it's kind of interesting because you're sitting there and you're looking at this extraordinarily beautiful building, and you can see the influences of all of these other architects from this origin of this very Richardsonian Romanesque type building that has a completely different language from everything that was being built around it. So this was as much of this avant-garde kind of modernist kind of movement before modernism existed, because it was just this, it was kind of a, yeah, I see what you guys are doing, but check out what my boy Henry here is doing,
My boy Henry.
And is just a captivating thing. And the thing I love about going on some of these tours is I will not say I'm an architect. I will just sit back and I will listen and all of this other stuff. And, every once in a great while, my wife was like, is that right? So it's I'm learning just as much as the next person. I do know enough about Richardson to kind of just be enriched and think about, all of the other things that were going on while I'm listening to their conversation. And the docents there were just phenomenal. This lady loves this building. She's, a member of the congregation and loves the building and has taken such a huge deep dive into understanding the building, understanding Richardson, understanding kind of even McKim, where, she could be a foremost expert on what's going on. And it was great because then afterwards, I started to have a conversation with her, and then, I apparently started dropping some archispeak that she was just like, "Are you an architect?"
Duh.
And so then the conversation kind of changed, and we got into a much deeper conversation about it. And then we started talking about the kind of the lineage of some of these other ones, and how, because you can see a lot of Sullivan, a lot of influence in Sullivan's work from H.H. Richardson. And so it's kind of interesting to kind of for me to piece all of that stuff together while I'm sitting there doing all of this, and then immediately go across the street and
wait.
Nope.
I'm gonna. This is where we actually call it out, and we do some archispeak here, and I give you a word, and then you tell me that you're already there. Juxtaposition, Cormac. Juxtaposition. Tell me what this brings up in relation to this church.
So juxtaposition, what does it bring up? It brings up two different things. One immediately across the commons is the McKim kind of transition from this development of the architectural style to a setback to kind of re-embracing a European style. But then right next door is this big glass high-rise, a John Hancock building by A.M. Pei, and it is such this amazing dichotomy of buildings.
Contrast. Yes,
You know,
there's a
this
contrast.
amazing contrast. And so there's one photograph that will, again, put a link to my Instagram page in the show notes, where there's this kind of concave split in the kind of like triangular piece of
It's like a wedge has been subtracted.
It's exactly from the, and if you stand in the right position, the spires, or the spire, if we want to call it that, of the tower of Trinity Church aligns perfectly with that, and it almost looks like that wedge. It's a good kind of like compositional, like filler of that. And it's really interesting. But then what was interesting is having the conversation about what the construction of the tower did to the church, which almost destroyed the church, because they were driving all of the piles in, and the piles were undermining the structure of the church. The whole Back Bay area is actually fill. And so it was already on unstable ground, and that particular church was built on a large matte concrete foundation. And of course now, these big high rises need to be built on large, caissons that go down to bedrock. And so as they're doing all of that, it's disrupting everything else. And almost everything on the building for Trinity Church is original. There are a few little small reproduction pieces, but there's one piece of glass that was completely blown out as a brand new piece, because when the heat, the thermal expansion in the early days of the Hancock Tower were going on, pieces of glass were popping out and dropping.
Just raining down shards of glass onto churchgoers.
Yes, raining down imminent death to folks.
Oh my God.
And it ripped out it shattered out one of the stained glass windows of the church.
It's a sign from God when you're inside that church and that happens.
Exactly.
Well, I think maybe we want to talk a little bit about the AIA conference in general, because we'll save our next field trips for future episodes for sure. We just want to give those projects their due to talk about them, and even talk about some that we didn't talk about.
Well, I mean, I think it kind of in an interesting way sort of helped set the stage for the trips that we took and what we wanted to see, but also just kind of like that first impression of Boston, especially since, this is your first time in, the New England states and things like that, and being able to do that. And then, of course, talking about, well, why were we even there in the first place?
Yeah.
So
let's talk about that. Let's talk about the AIA conference. And so the conference itself was really Thursday and Friday, and maybe the first half of Saturday, right? That's typically how they do it. And I felt like, just general, like 30,000 foot level, I felt like the energy was better than it was the last 2 years.
Yes.
Just pulling from recent memory. And I also felt like the speakers were better than they have been this year. Yeah. And I mean that from kind of engagement level. It was very, the keynotes were very well done, I thought, compared to previous years. And I'm not quite sure what the difference is, other than just the people who were involved in delivering the speeches and the conversation.
Also, I know that you and I in the past, we've talked about in kind of like, did the speakers that we had in the past speak to the audience of a group of a very large gathering of architects, right?
Yeah, like 15,000 architects as the number I heard.
Right. And, and in the past, there were some that were highly questionable. It's like, well, why are we listening to them? And then there were some that, as you kind of remember from the past, were like, man, why are we going to go listen to this guy? And that turned out to be a fantastic keynote speaker. But I think these all kind of are very relevant to what we do, giving like a kind of a little bit of a vision into the future with, the first keynote talking about AI, fantastic kind of recognition of, even before that, fantastic recognition of a lot of people who are doing great work in the profession, the recognition of the, firm of the year, recognition of a lot of like individuals who are out there,
Gold medal,
doing great, doing
Deborah
great,
Burke.
exactly, doing great work. And then, so like all of that was, in my opinion, it felt better than it has in the past because I don't know. I mean, maybe the energy was definitely a lot different. Like, so we went to like the first one post-COVID in Chicago, and it felt like we were just
that was not post-COVID. That was I got COVID there. Yeah,
that was the first and only time I got COVID was there. Thank you, architects.
God. Yeah, thanks, architects.
And so that was kind of like this. It was such a weird vibe there anyway, because everybody was just worried about like, am I going to get COVID? And yes was the answer in many cases. But then, and then San Francisco, we go there, and it still felt so very, I don't know if it was like maybe the place. I mean, what was great about like being in San Francisco is it was like in the heart of the city, and it was very walkable. And, I got my step count in and then some there, but it didn't seem like it was so well attended, or that the vendors were like, there wasn't as many vendors. And even in DC last year, which I was somewhat disappointed with, being kind of like a semi home turf. This is where, that was like where the birth of ArchiSpeak even, began, was at the 13 years ago, 14 years ago, AIA convention in DC was, but it just didn't have the vibe. And this one, you're absolutely right. It was so much more electric there, a lot more vendors, a lot to engage with. The thing that I am somewhat disappointed with is the way that they did the CEUs and all of like the lectures, because whereas in the past, you sort of had these, you could sign up for different sessions and stuff, and you would go there and you actually were guaranteed a spot. What they did was they sort of had a lot of like the vendor related CEU type stuff out on the floor, which they have in the past, sure.
Right.
But for some reason, if you signed, if you like, you didn't sign up for it per se, you actually just, you sort of showed up, and if there was space, you could go there. And if there wasn't space, you're like, well, too bad. And it didn't feel like that was as organized as it was in the past. But still, though, the overall feeling, the overall vibe, the overall camaraderie about that was so much better. A lot of walking on that floor. That was a big conference center that was completely filled.
It was great. I thought that was great. Yeah. The energy was great. There was the engagement with just the vendors who were there was great. It was just like, hey, we're all here to like learn and to get exposure of what's going on in the industry. And it actually felt like it just kind of like matched up with the energy of like everybody was bringing something positive to the situation. Right. Yeah. And I don't know how to explain. Like that sounds super woo-woo to me, but like at the same time, that's what it was. It felt great. And it's like it is mentally and physically draining to do these things. I mean, how many people did you talk to at the conference? I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people. I would say 1,000 people is probably not 1,000 people, but it felt like 1,000 people, like literal one-on-one conversations with that many people. And so it's taxing. And at the same time, like I didn't feel like, oh, get me out of here, which I have felt before.
Well, I will say that there was a few times where I did feel that way. And, as you were
kind of retreat.
Yeah, I had to retreat a few times and then get looked at because I went into the AIA's little area and I just found a nice comfortable seat to sit down in. But apparently it was for like AIA related like things. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
You're not allowed. We don't like your kind.
Well, somebody came up and they're like, are you waiting to meet with someone? And I'm like, nope, just off my feet. And like, yeah. But then they kind of like glanced at the press pass and they just, I guess, gave me a pass on the press pass thing. So maybe that was the key is to get yourself the little golden, the golden ticket.
I was curious if the AIA kind of taking over running the show, which I think happened in San Francisco for the first time. no, DC, maybe it was DC last year, that they did that for the first time, was going to change it significantly in a bad way, because like it's hard to run events, right? Like that's a thing. It's not easy at all. It's very difficult. And I felt like this one, they actually got their feet under them. That's how it felt to me.
Totally. I definitely got to applaud them that they did. Food at the event, though. Come on now, you could have gotten some food trucks or something out on the street, because
there weren't that many options. There weren't that many options. They only did it for a limited amount of time. I think that is a valid critique. And it like going outside of the conference center to find something, it was a walk. It was a hike to find something. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, again, hopefully the development will engulf that whole area, and there will be more food choices and stuff around there for future events and things like that for other people. But yeah, it was kind of a chore to, like, if you didn't like pack something in with you, it was kind of a chore. Although, Anderson Windows, going to give you a special shout out with your nice little coffee.
Not a sponsor. They should be.
Not a sponsor, but man, Evan got some two nice espresso.
Thanks to you.
Thermal mugs.
My wife was like, "What? We don't need those." And I'm like, well, "These are so cool." Like.
And I gave up mine for her.
I know. She ungrateful.
Great. Jeez.
Well, she hasn't gotten to actually use it yet, so maybe that will change her mind.
Exactly.
But
you need to. The weekend is coming, and you should
treat her.
I should treat her to some coffee.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Evelyn's keynote. So Evelyn, friend of the show, been on the show. Yes. Evelyn Lee, president of AIA this year, and. Yeah. I thought that her speech was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I thought she did an amazing job.
I will say something. I don't know if you noticed, but while she was speaking,
I noticed you were doing some serious reporting as a member of the press.
I actually texted her to tell her how good I thought,
her speech.
During her speech, I texted her, because this was during her speech, but before the conversation with Pete. And so I texted her, and the guy next to me was like kind of like glancing down and like noticing that he's just like, "You know her?" I'm like, "Yeah."
She knows a lot of people, to be fair.
But to be fair, she knows a lot of people. But fellow introverts of the world unite, right?
Yeah, right.
But no, she did a fantastic job. It was one of those that, and I'll say that in the past a lot, there's been both hit or miss with the president's speech,
like the delivery of that.
The delivery of that, and I think Kimberly last year did a great job. For some reason this year, I think because of the electricity of the conference itself, but then just kind of like the way that she kind of like just blended right into it and talked about with passion, the vision, for architecture and the profession and everything else, did, a fantastic job. And I thought it was great. And then, it kind of like led into obviously the next conversation that she had with the next keynote, so what did you think of that keynote?
So she basically had a chat, a conversation sitting, and this is like previous, I think Obama has been part of this before, right? Where they have these kind of one-on-one conversations. So it feels unscripted. It's a little bit scripted. Obviously, all of the questions have been kind of pre-vetted and thought about.
I looked at like the teleprompter that was like behind us up on the big screen, and I'm like,
it's all there. It's all there.
Unscripted script.
Yeah, but it's delivered very naturally, much like this podcast, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
but it's one of those. It was a great conversation, and I thought Pete Buttigieg's is that how you say it? Buttigieg's side of the his part of the conversation, being the question answerer. I felt like it was super inspiring, and it was like
engaging.
It was really engaging for the audience that was there, and kind of his emphasis on infrastructure, transportation, things like that. That his platform has really been built on over the years applies, and we lived it in Boston, right? Like we lived kind of the state of transportation and infrastructure on many levels, and kind of, you see the direct need for the attention in those matters. And I felt like just his weaving in his personal story with his twins and his kids, and just like the normal family life side of things, and all of that was like, that personal side of it is, what makes it land for all of the people in the audience. So I felt like it was a very well done conversation.
And it was a good conversation about how architects can influence and drive infrastructural improvements.
And at the policy level, right? Like I thought
at the policy level.
And I think that really is, to me, kind of the call to action for architects, is getting involved at the policy level, not just the RFP, not just the project level. Getting involved in city councils and decisions early, so that these things happen, and bringing an architect and the way that architects rise to challenges and show up with a different perspective than anybody else at the table when it comes to like our training and how we go about problem solving is a huge plus. And so that's why it's a big takeaway for me, is like, he's talking to the right audience here to get involved. It is a huge sacrifice to be able to take the time to do that, but it really does help in immense ways.
Yeah. What I hope changed for a few people that I overheard when we were entering into the hall, who were talking about, why do we really care about infrastructure? And I didn't connect with that comment, because I think a lot of our, like every bit of our work really does kind of connect with infrastructure in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, go beyond the property line. Yeah,
exactly. That I hope that the conversation kind of helped to change their minds. It didn't sound like that there was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of, really kind of encouraged. People seemed encouraged by the conversation.
Yeah.
So I kind of really hope that, things changed. They changed their minds as well.
Yeah. We skipped over the first day's keynotes because we love Evelyn, but Ali Miller delivered the AI keynote. And I think this was one of those ones where it's like, do we really need to go to this? And I'm glad we did, because I felt like her message at that time for that audience was super appropriate and on the big scale, because she is so good at delivering just like non-arca speak, non-technical, like obviously she's not an architect, but she brings kind of a really conversational, practical vision of the usefulness of AI and other emerging technology to an audience that is constantly slow to adopt new technologies or unable to see the application of technologies in their practice. And she gave some great examples, like just literally great examples that I hope really got people's gears turning. And it made me want to start to use kind of the AI coding stuff to build my own applications to do stuff, because she gave some great examples about that, like even just for kids, developing a toothbrushing app with a timer and a reminder, and I thought, like, it's just like super simple example, but it shows you kind of like how things are literally changing underneath us at a foundational level when it comes to what the tools are that we're going to use to deliver projects, and then how we could apply that to our practices.
Yeah. So one of the things that always amazes me about people in the conversation about AI, especially architects in the conversation about AI, is but what does that mean for us? What does that mean for the profession? And so not only did we have that keynote, but then when you went out onto the floor and you got to see people in how they're applying AI as a tool to assist architects and planners and jurisdictions and all of that other stuff, and it really kind of showed that, as we always say, the genie's out of the bottle. AI is coming whether we like it or not. But now here is exactly how you can actually use it. So it was a good tie-in to, not only that first keynote, but then when you went out onto the floor and you could actually see how it's actually being practically used as a way for what, is accessible to architects. AI in the software, like just the production software that we use. But then, this whole kind of expansion of other softwares that are using it that, can help streamline. And, as we were talking about with Arcol, how you can use all of these different productivity tools with AI to kind of help assist in like the mundane kind of things that, we want to do differently. And I think we were sort of blown away by the capabilities of, what was it? Archistar?
Archistar, yeah. I was going to
Archistar,
say, shout out to Archistar. Yeah, small booth,
definitely.
big idea. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And it was just, fantastic the way that they're, implementing things and helping things from the AHJ side of things that, and then how it's being used and implemented in things like, upcodes and stuff like that, and how that's directly helping us. And then like, interesting to like, it was kind of good to see like you kind of like surfing around and say, who you guys, like going from one booth and saying, you guys need to go talk to like these guys.
Yeah,
and these guys
right.
need to go talk to those guys and stuff. And like you were like making introductions and to other things that could benefit from each other, as well as, how can architects use it, but how can those particular like tech developers use each other to kind of improve their own stuff, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, people don't know what people don't know what they don't know, and so everybody knows what it's like to be like in your lane and like
Right.
heads down and like go on the things that you're doing, whether that's developing software or delivering projects. And so as somebody who can kind of sit back and see where these connections need to be made, because like chances are they don't know about this startup that's doing this thing, or this as an architect, like this tool that accomplishes this goal.
Right.
And so I love kind of making those connections with people.
Yeah, that was cool.
Awesome. Well, I think we need to wrap this one up. You have a meeting to get to, but we will continue this conversation in our next episode and do some deeper dives into the projects that we got to visit, which can't wait. It's going to be great.
Yeah, this is when I get to nerd seriously out.
Yes, definitely. All right, man. So see y'all in the next one.
All right.